Friday edition of Pro Football Talk Live. Dallas Cowboys getting the big win to start Week 13. Mike Florio, Peter King with you for the next 2 hours to reflect on last night's game, get you ready for Sunday's games, and also we have to spend some time on one of the developments that occurred on Thursday afternoon. I thought Friday afternoon was the place where bad news went to die. Some bad news came alive on Thursday afternoon, but we'll get to that. First, I say good morning and hello, Peter. Welcome back. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. All well here. How about you?
All is good, and it's Christmas season, and the house is gradually being decorated through no involvement of my own other than to carry some boxes up when they're full and down when they're empty. Otherwise, I stay out of the way, and the decorations are far better because of that. All right, let's get to it. Cowboys beat the Saints 27-17 in the Superdome on Thursday night with Mike McCarthy out, Dan Quinn in as coach of the team. And it was an important win for the Dallas Cowboys, just big picture. They had lost 3 out of 4. They were facing a desperate Saints team that had never lost 5 in a row under Sean Payton. Last time they lost 5 in a row was the Katrina year of 2005, Peter. Just from the perspective of the stakes, the Cowboys needed this one because last week it was the Eagles creeping up on them. This week it's Washington creeping up on them, and Washington plays them twice over the final 5 games. They needed to reestablish themselves. To themselves, not just everybody else, but to themselves, that they were the team that they thought they were as of a few weeks ago.
Mike, the most stunning thing to me that came out of last night's game is now that the dust has cleared, the New Orleans Saints are the number 12 seeded team in the NFC for the playoffs. In other words, it's not happening this year. And, I never thought, really, I picked the Saints to make the playoffs before this year. And I just never thought at all, no matter who quarterbacked this team, that they would be so low and so sort of destitute at this time of year. But that's what injuries will do to you. And that's what perhaps misjudging your quarterback depth chart will do to you. Now, I believe, and you may or may not believe, but I believe that a lot of what happened last night with the kind of embarrassing performance by Taysom Hill, who fed into what every Taysom Hill doubter for the last 2 or 3 or 4 years has said, oh, Sean Payton, you're delusional. He can never be a full-time quarterback in the NFL. And they're all saying now, see, told you so. And I happen to think it is his, Russell Wilson light injury that he got with the middle finger on his passing hand that they had to splint. And from then on, from that point of the game early on, he was just never accurate. Now, whatever. Who knows if that's exactly why. But he was just really inaccurate last night. And here's the play, banging his finger on the forearm. I think that was DeMarcus Lawrence, of the forearm, and it was just never right. And you could tell he was playing with it the whole game, trying to get it right, trying to straighten it out. But for whatever reason, it was just a horrible night for the Saints.
And it's funny you mentioned Taysom Hill, and obviously he's a big talking point coming out of that game. Yesterday, Sims and I made the observation that there is, as it relates to Tua Tagovailoa, the group that we refer to as TuaNon, which is irrationally, zealously of the belief that he is the next Dan Marino, and how dare you ever suggest otherwise. Tayanon is the other side of that.
I've had a few of the TuaNons.
Well, and I've had a few of the Tayanons. There's this group out there that is always looking for any ammunition to say, this guy sucks. Taysom Hill stinks. He's never going to be a good quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody said that last year when he went 3-1 as a replacement for Drew Brees. Nobody said boo about Taysom Hill not having the skills to play at the NFL level at the quarterback position. Now, he lost the job fair and square to Jameis Winston entering the season. he wasn't used as extensively as a jack of all trades as he should have been. When you're paying this guy 8 figures, what are you doing? And last night, he was unleashed. He had over 100 rushing yards. I mean, look, people have compared him to Lamar Jackson, and, well, I guess we can make an apples-to-apples comparison because they each had 4 interceptions in their most recent game. But at least Taysom Hill has, I busted my finger as an excuse for it.
Hey, look, we'll find out what his future holds. Because I think, look, if you're Sean Payton now, you've got to pull out every stop to try to win these games, obviously. But you've also got to be realistic. You're not running the table. You're not finishing 10-7. You got too many injuries. Mike, last night I looked up on his touchdown, on Taysom Hill's touchdown to Lil Jordan Humphrey. Okay, there were 2 tackles playing who, are not starting NFL tackles. And he had a tight end, Garrett Griffin, who is not a starting NFL tight end traditionally. And you look around the field and you look at all the guys who either weren't there at the beginning of the year or certainly weren't starting at the beginning of the year. And you just say, listen, sometimes you're too beat up to be really good. And I think the Saints' other issue, and I do not want to go long term, that's a topic for February 10th, or February 20th now, after the Super Bowl. But at some point, somebody's going to cast a critical eye at the Saints' salary cap, and they're going to say, this is not a one-year fix. This is going to take a while because that cap is wounded.
Well, and when you have so much money tied into so few people and you have those injuries, and yet again, 7 of the offensive starters entering the season, ideally, I mean, Michael Thomas gets included in that analysis, although I don't think at any point this season anybody expected to see Michael Thomas. It was kind of a surprise when we found out training camp time frame that there was going to be an issue with Michael Thomas, but still, the ideal lineup for the Saints.
But Mike, you know what? You expected to see Michael Thomas, say, by midseason.
Yes.
And then a couple of weeks ago, you find out he's not going to play at all. That is one of the all-time disastrous contracts because now you have to wonder, is he ever going to play again? And is he ever going to be effective? And I don't know. But when you miss most of 2 seasons, I think he'll have played 7 games out of whatever, 33 or 34, however many they've played. You really have to start wondering, and you have to have another surgery and all that. So anyway, I didn't mean to derail you.
No, but the point is they had all that money tied up in Michael Thomas, and he deserved it. He earned it, but he's not there. Alvin Kamara, all that money tied up in him. He deserved it. He earned it. He's not there either. He's missed 4 straight games with a knee injury. Jameis Winston, your preferred quarterback, isn't there because of the knee injury he suffered. You don't have your 2 starting tackles. I'm not making excuses for the Saints. It's just the reality. It's why I expected the Cowboys to win. It's why I expected them to cover.
Yeah.
I just, no matter what you want to do as a football team, there's only so much you can do, and you're limited by who is and who isn't available. And look, Taysom Hill, if he thought that there was going to be some sort of clamoring for his services as a quarterback, all he had to say to the Saints was, I'll just ride out my contract and become a free agent. He's the one that agreed to this hybrid Frankenstein monster of a contract that pays him a certain amount of money if he's not playing quarterback, pays him potentially more if he plays quarterback, and plays well. He's got to play enough, and he's got to play well to unlock the majority of the money. And if he's going to do it anywhere, it's going to be for Sean Payton in New Orleans. But I don't think, even with the finger injury and anything we expect to see over the balance of the season, I don't think Hill is going to do enough is going to keep the Saints from trying to figure out a way to make a dramatic upgrade at quarterback after the season, whether it's luring Russell Wilson to town, attracting Aaron Rodgers to town, trading up for, although they may not have to trade up very far if they keep losing, a rookie quarterback that they may want. But as you say, they're going to have to work more salary cap magic to make that happen because they're still paying for the contracts, the excess, the star players that they've signed in the past, and they're not enjoying the benefit of those players in the present.
You know, the other thing about last night's game, Mike, about the Saints is that defense is definitely good enough. That defense is a competitive defense. And, you know, Dennis Allen ought to get more than a few sniffs this offseason somewhere to be a head coach. But I'll tell you the one other thing that really struck me about this game. I've been thinking this, it's almost sacrilegious to say, but I think Tony Pollard's a better football player than Ezekiel Elliott.
Right now, yes.
You know,
right now, yes.
You look at those two players, and you look at the impact that Tony Pollard has on games. And I understand. Just look at Tony Pollard. Look at the speed, and look at his instinct, and how he says, "I know I have enough, you know, to make the pylon right there." And I just have been watching this guy. We've all been watching him. And I keep saying, boy, if I were Kellen Moore, I'd start carving out a bigger role for him than 8 carries a game. And I don't know what he's got, you know. But I did look up Ezekiel Elliott today. And it's not that I think he's a bad player. But the fact is, 7 consecutive games on a good team where he's a franchise back, where he has not rushed for 70 yards. I mean, you know, sometimes we talk so disparagingly, you know, about different backs and about why isn't this guy doing something? Why isn't that guy doing something? I think the Giants ask that question every week. But I'm really starting to wonder now about Ezekiel Elliott. Maybe it is his injury, but, man, I'd rather have Tony Pollard carrying the ball more in a game than Zeke right now.
At least the Giants are coming to that conclusion before they make a significant financial investment in Saquon Barkley, at least more significant than the one they've made. But this all gets back to drafting running backs in the top 10. Saquon Barkley, 2. Ezekiel Elliott was a top 10 guy. Christian McCaffrey, a top 10 guy. You set yourself up for that second big contract if the guy plays well his first 3 years. Elliott played really well. So his second contract, which is tying the Cowboys' hands now, part of that is paying him for what he did those first 3 years. That's why you just don't do it. You don't make that draft pick investment in the top 10 in a running back because you set the stage for what's happening now, whether it's general wear and tear, whether it's injury, whether it's just age, and running backs age quickly in the NFL. Tony Pollard is the better player right now. Tony Pollard is making peanuts in comparison to Ezekiel Elliott, and it'll be interesting to see what decisions they make as they get closer to Pollard becoming a free agent, Elliott getting closer to a point where they can move on from him because they need the balance to make it work. And you're right, the Saints defense played well. They kept that game interesting. That game was close.
Yes.
That game could have gone either way until the pick 6 at the relative end of the game. And even after that, the Saints scored a touchdown to cut the deficit back to 10. So it wasn't over, and that's credit to the Saints. It doesn't matter because you still lost. But this is an explosive Cowboys offense. And you're right. The Saints defense largely held them in check, but there was the dagger. There was the moment. There was under 3 minutes left. The Saints are going to be hard-pressed to score 10 points in 3 minutes. But still, they scored 7 right after this touchdown. So who knows? But it should have been worse. As bad as the offense was last night for the Saints, Peter, it should have been much worse for them in the final score, and their defense kept that from happening.
Yeah, and, you know, there are so many good players. And, Mike, when I was watching that game, I kept thinking, man, I hate it that Cam Jordan's going to have a wasted season because as intensely as he plays and, you know, as short the careers are of guys who play as hard as he does for so many snaps in every game, you know, I feel like, my God, don't waste this year. Don't waste any year of Cam Jordan. It's like I'm watching Marshawn Lattimore, who's not consistently great, but he can be a superb shutdown corner. And you just say to yourself, man, you hate to see a year of the prime of these guys go down the tubes. And look, how do you know what you've got next year? I mean, Look, Mike, you know what nobody is talking about now? How about the Jameis Winston surgery, which was really a serious surgery? It wasn't just a run-of-the-mill, knee surgery. And so, that may take 10 to 12 months to come back from. You don't know. And so, it's too early to know how long it's going to take. But what I'm saying is, they may have a quarterback issue, a big quarterback issue going into training camp next year. So that would be the second consecutive year where you don't really know if you've solved Drew Brees. And I think the only way it gets fixed is if they pull a rabbit out of their hat and they somehow get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or somebody, which seems impossible with the cap situation that they're in.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.